Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wassalam ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Yeah, go ahead.
We just want to give you a proper introduction, because we love you so much.
I don't really deserve any kind of
You're just
introduction.
radiating with so much light. We love you.
The light is going
All right, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. I pray everyone is doing great. By now, you're probably tired of our sense of humor or lack of it. So do apologize for our corny jokes, but I just want to make sure everyone's comfortable and having a good time. Just want to welcome everybody to our weekly Islam 101 class. This is where we, of course, do our best to take a topic and have a small discussion about it. And always are blessed to have various speakers and scholars and imams, community leaders coming, students of knowledge coming to join us and to enlighten us on the particular matter. So I want to thank today our dear Shaykh, Shaykh Hashim. We're blessed to have him at least once a month, hoping to get him even more than that. Shaykh Hashim, of course, he's a religious director of the Tustin Islamic Center in Dar al-Falah in beautiful Tustin. So if you're in that area, you want to make sure you visit his community. Number two, of course, a blessing that Shaykh Hashim has that I always like to mention, as I do for other speakers as well, that Shaykh Hashim actually reverted to Islam many years ago. He went abroad, he studied in Saudi Arabia, and also lived in Pakistan for a number of years, and then he came back and now is supporting the program. So it's always a blessing when we have our scholars, our imams, our sheikhs that actually have also converted to Islam, get the traditional knowledge, the authentic knowledge, they come back and then they share it and support with us in the trenches. So I really appreciate that, Shaykh Hashim. Thank you so much. He, of course, had a very busy morning today. You guys did the morning post-Fajr program.
we were hoping that some of you all would come.
Did anybody go? We put the posting up.
Well, Catherine, of course, the staple, she's always there, yeah. But
should definitely, we encourage you guys. Hopefully, we can also start to do that as well. Maybe join forces and do together. But definitely love what Shaykh Hashim is doing. He actually goes onto the beach after the Fajr prayer. They go onto the beach and they enjoy. Maybe you can mention that in the discussion later on if it's possible. But it's always a pleasure, Shaykh, having you here with us. Of course, the topic is digital addiction, virtual social networking, as you can tell here, alhamdulillah. Secondly, I just want to remind myself and you, please don't be shy. We have food there in the back, so please help yourself to lunch and drinks. We do like to recycle, so if you do finish your cans or bottles, you want to dispose of it in the recycling bin, that'll be great. And of course, welcome to everybody online as well. And then announcements at the tail end of the conversation. Shaykhna, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much. Allah bless you.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wassalam ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. So this is actually part of a module of my series, which is known as Healthy, Meaningful Living Through Islamic Holistic Health, which some of those modules we actually did here a few years back. And this is part of the module which we talk about social health. There's many dimensions of health: spiritual health, physical health, emotional health, intellectual health, social health, and ultimately environmental health. So this is a portion of that social health, because this is such a challenging issue and such a destructive element to social health, not only for us but for everybody on the globe. So digital addiction, virtual social networking. So I don't think we need to introduce this. Everybody knows about this. Everybody's there. Most of us are even actively engaged there. One of the most dangerous and destructive social, mental, physical health challenges of the 21st century. So it's not a joke. People say, people kind of smile and chuckle, but it's really not a joke. It's not a laughing matter. It's a very serious matter. And the younger the people are, the more serious it is for them. So all the more serious for us as Muslims who are trying to live a life of servitude. Does this ring a bell to anyone? So somebody say, come on, yeah, that's exaggerating it. No, actually, addiction, Facebook addiction. These addictions that we have, we have all kinds of addictions. Addiction is something where it's something that you're engaged in that you would like to stop. You know it's not good for you, but you don't have the power to do it, or it's very difficult to do so, right? So this type of addiction is all the more dangerous because it doesn't have perimeters, in the sense that I can't sit here at the table and pull out a syringe of heroin and shoot it up. I mean, that would be quite an act of impunity, which I'd probably end up in jail pretty quick, right? So you can't do that. You can't walk down the street and pull out a syringe, or on the bus, or in the movie, or at the dinner table with your family. Can you do that? I don't think so, unless they're all addicts, which is generally not the case. But you go to a dinner table, you go to a public place, you sit on the bus, here, even in public gatherings, everyone's out, got their gadget. So their addiction is actually overpowering them, even in these social settings. And there's no restrictions, you see? So it's really, something to think about. Yeah? So these are some kind of graphic to kind of set the stage, and think about it. Huh? This is one I really like. I don't like it at all, but I like the message. I mean, it's a very powerful message. Here we have people, we're all sitting together. You see this on buses, you see in public places. People are sitting together, but they're all living in different worlds. Nobody's connected with one another. And this is happening in the family. People are sitting together in the room, the whole family. Everybody's in a different world. Is that unity? Is that family? No. Okay. So in this context, we're going to, go to the root. What's the root problem here? So I'll read this ayat of Quran and we'll translate it. We'll talk about it a little bit. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان ومن يتبع خطوات الشيطان فإنه يأمر بالفحشاء والمنكر ولولا فضل الله عليكم ورحمته ما زكى منكم من أحد أبدا ولكن الله يزكي من يشاء والله سميع عليم. This is from Surah Nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe." This is always very critical, that whenever we see, and we see this in the Quran again and again, "O you who believe, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling to the people of Iman. This is very critical. So it means what's coming after this is extremely important. We have to pay very close attention. لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. Do not follow in the footsteps of shaitan. So what does that mean? Does that mean he's walking along and we see the footprints and we put our feet in each of it? It means following in his plans. He's got plans for every one of us. By the way, shaitan, since we don't see him, right? And since he doesn't need, for example, a license, to enter into any place, or, permission, he goes wherever he wants. And it's not only him, but him and his whole clan. He's got his whole tribe of jinn, and they move around where at will. They don't need passports. They don't need airplane tickets. They can just move around at will. And each one of us, by the way, has one's personal Satan and one's personal angel. This is substantiated in the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. He says all of us have one. We have many angels actually surrounding us and guarding us, but we have particularly one angel which is guarding us and is telling us and is inspiring us to do good things. That's why from time to time we have two dimensions where this comes from. One is our inherent nature. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is placed in human nature, if it hasn't been twisted and distorted by continuous sins, which happens, and then the heart becomes blackened and darkened and it doesn't see right from wrong. But intrinsically, people can understand basic truths, basic rights and wrongs. That's part of our nature. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has inspired, in the soul of people, basic rights and wrongs, good and evil. Therefore people, nobody likes liars. And everybody pretty much across the board, even criminals, even in criminal circles, they don't like somebody telling them lies. His colleague, who's his colleague criminal, he would not appreciate lies, right? Nobody likes that, right? The other thing, the other element which inspires man to do right is this angel. They have this concept, the guardian angel. Well, actually, that's true. We all have those. So sometimes the angel is telling us do good. On the other hand, we have this Satan also. Our own appointed Satan, who's continuously telling us do wrong, do this, do that, And so the problem is that my laptop, I think last time we did the same thing. Whenever I put it on PP, it goes into sleep mode, even though I have all the settings, but for some reason it does that. So I have to keep moving my finger, otherwise it goes into sleep mode. So Satan is always after us. He's always, and he knows he's got a huge repertoire of tricks. He's got a trick for everybody. Everybody has a different weakness, So, and he knows our weaknesses. He knows how to attack us, from where to attack us, how, when we're vulnerable, and that's what he does. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning us, don't follow in his plans, which means a very important branch of knowledge that we need to learn is the trickery of Satan. And our scholars have written whole books on this, which, explain the various kinds of people, the various types of professions, the various types of stratas in society and positioning in society and so forth, and what might be specific plans or general plans that Satan uses for these types of scenarios or these type of people involved in these type of things. So be careful. So this is a kind of knowledge that we as new Muslims, we need to learn about that. How does Satan beguile us? How does he take us off the track? وَمَنْ يَتَّبِعْ خُطْوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, and whoever follows in the footsteps of Shaitan, فَإِنَّهُ يَأْمُرُ بِالْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. So verily, he only urges to indecency and abomination. He'll never tell us to do something good. He's always inspiring us, and he has tricky ways of getting us to do good, even do wrong, even thinking that we're doing good. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further tells us, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ مَا زَغَ مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ أَبَدًا. And had it not been for the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his mercy, then none of you would have ever been cleansed. We would have never been purified. We would have never been purified from this plotting and planning and effect and impact of Shaitan, because he would have overpowered us. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor and his fadl and his special protection is what actually is the saving grace. It's not our intelligence, it's not our knowledge. Of course, these are all elements, but ultimately, bottom line is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and his grace is what comes to our ultimate assistance. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cleanses and assists whomsoever he will, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hearing and wise. So this is the general statement: don't follow the footsteps of Shaitan, he's after us. Okay, another, just highlighting this a little bit more. Inna shaytana lakum aduwwun fattakhiduhu aduwwa. Verily, Satan is your enemy. He's an enemy unto you. So take him as an enemy. If you have an enemy, you're not in negligence. You don't get forgetful. If you know you've got a hit squad coming after you, do you sleep well at night? When you go out, and get into your car, you're vigilant. Might be a bomb. There might be somebody waiting, lurking in the shadows, So like that, Satan is after us, So we have to be on guard all the time. We don't get stressed out, We just have to take proper steps. We have to understand, what we need to do to protect. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further goes on, إِنَّمَا يَدْعُ حِزْبَهُ لِيَكُونُ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. So what does he do? He only calls his confederates meaning those who follow in his footsteps, that they become the fellows of the blaze, because he's entering into the fire of hell forever and ever. And the reason he's going is because he disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he was ordered to prostrate in recognition and acknowledgement of the position and status of our father Adam. So because of his jealousy, he refused to do so. And refusing to do so, he was disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ordered him to prostrate and to, acknowledge. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't acknowledge him because I'm better than him. So the original racism was actually from Satan. He was the original racist. I'm better than anybody thinks I'm better than somebody else because of something, like my color, my ethnicity, my country, my passport, my education, or whatever. This is all a form of racism. This is all a form of arrogance, feeling of superiority. I'm better than someone. We don't know that we're better than anybody. We don't know we're better than dogs. Last time I probably mentioned that story, how Islam spread, in India. And one of the great scholars was asked, by a disbelieving king who was about to take retribution from him, are you better or my dog? He said, well, if I die with faith, I'm better than your dog. If I die without faith, your dog is better than me. And we don't know how we're going to die, by the way. So we don't know, So we never think we're better than anybody, So Satan is going to hellfire. He's going to remain there forever. And he wants to take all of us because he's not only jealous with Adam, he's jealous with every single one of his progeny. So he's after all of us to take us into the fire of Jahannam. So that's his plan, and that is his strategy. That is his objective. Okay? So what's the correlation? Correlation is quite obvious, should be. So now, we have this thing called the internet. Internet. So it's actually the net. Or sometimes they just say the net. What do you do with the net, by the way, Jamal? What do you do with a net? You catch things. You have a fish net. What do? You catch fish. You have a fly net. You catch flies. You have a human net. It's called internet. You catch human beings. And it's caught more human beings, I think, than any strategy that's ever been on the planet. Somebody can come out with some kind of nonsense, and within moments, he's got millions of followers. Yeah? That's pretty serious, right? So this is an unprecedented platform by which good or evil can spread instantaneously, to, unprecedented proportions and distances. Now, the problem is that generally what's going on this net is quite detrimental and quite destructive to our iman, to our morals, to our character, to our fiber. And we're going to see it's not simply a mental thing. It's having impact even on our physical being. Even our genetic makeup is being compromised. And we're going to look into this, some studies that have been done, and more are ongoing all the time now, because it's really, as I said, the medical society or the medical establishment has identified this as the number one medical issue of the 21st century. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, this is also another very important principle that we're talking about here. First, we're setting some principles. Based on those principles, we're going to see how we're going to deal with this dilemma, with this issue. So Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. Allahu Akbar. So Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, who was the cousin, although he was quite younger than Rasulullah, but nevertheless, he was the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was special dua, special supplication was made for him, and he is considered the supreme authority after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the commentary of the Holy Quran. Now he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this: two blessings, ni'matan, two extremely valuable blessings, maghbunun. Now maghbunun, many people incur loss. Okay, it doesn't really give you the essence of this word maghbun, because maghbun comes from ghuban. Ghuban means you've been fraudulated. And usually it's used in business transactions, هذا غبن فاحش, somebody, for example, I sell you this coffee. It's organic coffee coming from the mountains of Colombia. And then we look at it, made in China, right? So, yeah, coffee probably coming from China somewhere or the other, right? So, these two blessings, people are getting, drastically, what's the word I want? Drastically cheated. We're getting really cheated out of a lot, because we're not cognizant of the positioning and the value of these two blessings. So these two blessings, so many people are being, they're being hoodwinked. They're shortchanged. They're incurring huge loss. What are they? As-siha wal-faragh. Your health and your free time. That's why I keep emphasizing health, because if you don't have health, how are you going to live a life of servitude? The life of Islam is a life of servitude. It's a life of action. It's a life, we've got ibadat, we've got, worship, we have service, we have struggling, we have, for the sake of establishing the deen, and it's a life of action. Did you know that you have 360 joints in your body? Did you know that? You do. Prophet ﷺ says, every day that we wake up in the morning, we are supposed to pay sadaqah. We're supposed to pay charity for every one of these joints. Suppose if this one joint froze, one of the joints in your finger froze, your elbow froze, your knee froze. I mean, that happens a lot. The whole lifestyle of this person is now totally compromised. This is, So, in Karachi, maybe I mentioned this earlier. In Karachi, I used to walk in the morning after, I usually do some kind of physical activity after Fajr. So in Karachi, near my house, there was a big park. I used to walk in that park, and all these old guys would be walking, And so I asked them, why are you walking? He said, well, I had a bypass, and, the doctor says you have to walk. Oh, okay. Another guy says, I have diabetes now, so I have to walk. And they had, somebody says, I'm getting arthritis now, I need to walk. So then they said, well, you don't seem to have any problem. Why are you walking? I said, because I don't want to end up like you guys. Now, so that's the thing. So the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying, your sihat, your health is a great ni'mah. Take care of it. And it's never been more challenging than now, because most of everything we eat and we drink and we see in our whole lifestyle is unhealthy. And that's why we see people at the age of 40, they're done, diabetes. And we have kids now, kids in school now, they're coming up with diabetes. When I was a kid, we heard the name, but we never knew we didn't know anybody that had it. Diabetes, we never saw anybody that had that. We heard of it. Cancer. Every third person has got cancer, and this is more prolific in Muslim countries. So anyway, I don't want to, I have a whole, module for that. Sometime we'll do that, but it's very critical, our sihat, because our whole lifestyle of Islam, it requires vitality, it requires health, energy, and if we're sick and we've got diabetes and we got heart problems and high blood pressure and arthritis and insomnia and depression and so we need to take care of that. Okay, that's one. Number two, faragh, free time. And this is more core to what we're talking about today. Free time. Actually, if you think about it, faragh, meaning faragh from the necessities of life, the things that we have to do. So actually, the Muslim, he doesn't really have any free time, if you think about it. Because every time he finishes some activity, he gets involved in another activity. It's too loud? Oh, okay. Right? Yeah. One of my teachers in Makkah, Shaykh Abdul Karim Farghani, rahmatullah alayhi, he was from Bukhara. He was an old man in his 80s. He taught, the knowledge of Islam until the day he died. That's how our teachers, were. Until they were alive, they would be involved in their thing. So we used to, we used to ask him to give us a little more time, give more time. So he had every time, every part of the day, there was a particular activity that he was engaged in. He was studying this, he was teaching that, he was reading Quran, he was doing some dhikr, whatever it is. But he didn't have any free time. So one time I asked him, I just want another 10 minutes for that. He just said in 2 words in Arabic, said, "Wadhifatun ukhra," which basically means I have another activity. In other words, that 10 minutes you want, I have another activity for that 10 minutes. We go in for 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days, 10 years, and what have we accomplished? What are we engaged in? It's questionable. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, pay attention. You only have, your life is a series of moments. And every moment is finishing. The clock is ticking. We're getting closer to our graves. The time is now, it's like ice melting. So if you don't put it in something and use it, it's just going to melt away for nothing. So this is the core to what this whole internet addiction is. This is probably the most manifest problem is our time. How many hours, do we spend on these things daily? Somebody said, I can't learn Arabic language. I'm not learning Quran. I don't have time for Salat. Oh yeah? Why? I don't know. I just don't have time for that. Okay, let's take an account. Put on your timer. There was a timer that we could put on every time we get into our gadgets, the timer goes on. How much time do you think at the end of the day, we would be shocked? How many hours are we spending? We could have learned Arabic language. We could have memorized the Quran. We could have, read so many, extra prayers. We could have done so many. We could have done service to somebody. We could have actually went to sleep, which probably we're not getting proper sleep even. So many things that we're losing because of this. So this is where Satan, look more, see this, check into that. Why? What's the point? What is the benefit? Is it taking me towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or towards any worthwhile goal? If so, then yes, it has its benefits, no doubt. This program is being broadcast, for whatever it's worth. Allah make it worth something. So we have, it has its benefits, but the detriments seem to extremely, outweigh, the benefits as it is the way that we're using it and the way that it's mostly used. So this is a very important hadith of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. So we need to take cognizance of our time. Think about this. Last word on this topic. If we lose a house, may Allah save all of our health and our wealth and our property and everything. But suppose our house burns down. Is that the end of the world? Can we not build another house? Yeah. Suppose we have a loss in business. We have a business, we lose it, we have total bankruptcy. It's possible to build up another business. A family member dies, well, we're all going to die one day. A person loses his wife or his husband, they can remarry, child dies, perhaps more children will come. Everything has its, sort of replacement, except time. We lost 5 minutes just now. We will not be able to replace that. 5 seconds, we can't replace that. 1 second. If we had the world and everything contained and said, oh Allah, give me that second back. Here's everything that I own. Here's the whole world, in fact. Just give me 1 moment. And in fact, on the day of judgment, people will say that. Just let me go back to the world and say one time, Subhanallah, Allah is exalted. They would give the world for that. You had plenty of time. You had a whole lifetime. What did you do with that? So this is what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is telling us. So be cognizant. Our time, our health, this is our wealth, intrinsic wealth. Okay? So this internet thing, is really, it just destroys our health, number one, and it is totally devastating our planning, our daily schedule. And so many things we're being hoodwinked out of, and we're being, denied engagement in because of our engagement in what is frivolous, Facebook, who did what, who said what, who went where, who went on this vacation, who's wearing this, who ate that. Come on, really? We got time for that? So we really need to take cognizance of that. May Allah give us tawfiq. So here is a very important hadith. I'll just read it in English. And it also is the last main principle that we want to talk about today. So Nu'man ibn Bashir, great Sahabi, great companion of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I heard Allah's messenger saying, verily halal is manifest, and indeed haram is manifest. I mean, like alcohol, very clear, pork, very clear, what is halal, good things which are halal. I mean, that's clear. But there are issues, obscurities, gray areas that a lot of people are not aware of. In fact, most of the people are not aware of. Okay? So who guards oneself from such obscurities? And the context here is because on the internet, we're going into areas, we're seeing things, hearing things, getting involved in narratives, very doubtful issues, if not outright, out of hand, and outright, haram. But we have many things which are, just if nothing less, time wasting or frivolous or taking us off our point. And as we said, Shaitan, he gets us involved in things just to make us swerve. And once the swerve keeps on going, after a while, you don't know. And today at the beach, we saw that we had the current. So we went out here, and then, after a few moments, people found themselves down at the end of the pier and going past. So without even making an effort, the current is just dragging us down. So this is what happens. We get on the internet, and the current of the internet just sweeps us away, and an hour goes by, 2 hours go by, we don't know what happened, where we went, where we ended up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. So, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says what? He says, so who falls into these obscurities, these gray areas, doubtful areas, he gets involved in these things, then ultimately he's going to fall into haram. Oh yeah? Why? How? So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam explains, very graphic example. He says, like the shepherd grazing his flock near a protected, forbidden area. This is still the case, but in the old days, particularly in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, these kings or these tribal chiefs, they would have their own separate area, in the desert, which was more fertile, and that would be cordoned off for their livestock. And woe unto anybody that would wander into there, without, without license, they would be in big trouble, So suppose there's a king and he's got his, sanctuary, and you, the shepherd, you're wandering around with your sheep and you get nearby. Then what happens? You go off on a doze, you doze off, and inadvertently your sheep, who don't distinguish whose land is whose, they wander into the sanctuary of the king. And the king catches your sheep in his sanctuary. You're in trouble, right? Like, we wander, we're driving down to San Diego and there's Camp Pendleton, right? So we see a trail going, oh, let's just wander off into there. And all of a sudden we get inside the actual camp, and then the military police catch us inside, we're in trouble, right? So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, for every king has a forbidden area. It's his area. You don't go there. Verily, the forbidden area of Allah is what He has forbidden. Those things which Allah SWT has made haram, those are His forbidden areas. And indeed, in the body is a chunk of flesh. If rectified, the entire body is rectified. And if putrefied, the entire body is putrefied. Verily, that is the heart. So when the heart is corrected, and it's clean, it's pure, it's healthy, it's connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has the light of faith, it has the light of good actions, it has the light of good morals and ethics. So then everything that this body does is connected to the goodness of that heart. He says good things, he sees in a good way, he hears things in a good way, and his hands, his feet, and everything that he does are good actions, because the king of the heart is pure and clean and full of light. And if that heart becomes corrupted, putrefied, it becomes dirtied, then everything that he does, what he sees is dirty, his speech is dirty, his actions are filthy, and so forth and so on. So, so what is conventional knowledge is make laws, put him in a clinic, give him drugs or do something. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, no, that none of that is really going to get to the core of the issue. The issue is correcting the heart, correcting this belief set, correcting the morals and ethics, making connection with the creator of the universe. That's why these Sunday mornings we go to the beach and then we get everybody to do the remembrance of Allah. We say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, memorize, glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by his names and his attributes. By doing this consistently, our 5 times salat, reading the Quran, all of these things, the heart becomes enlightened, it becomes purified, right? And then everything that we do. So this internet and being involved in, we all know what's on the internet. The biggest attraction of internet, as we know, is pornography, the filthiest stuff that there is. And most of the people, that's what they're engaged in. And unfortunately, in Muslim countries, where you could never find these kind of activities going on publicly, it's forbidden, right, in the laws, in the legal system. But now in everybody's house, everybody can, join in. And the other problem is that before these kind of things it was not easy to get involved. You had to take a lot of risk to get involved in these activities. Now it's just a click away, everything. Very, very dangerous. So what's going to stop people from engaging and falling into this net? The condition of the heart. If the hearts are corrected, then it will put the brakes on. And if the heart is not corrected, it's impossible. You can't control people, to what they're going to see and how they're going to use these devices. It's now what we call armum al-balwa. It is now, this general spread of these things, and it's uncontrollable. The only control that we can have now is internal control. So that's what we need to develop. May Allah give us all tawfiq. So now let's look at this, now a little bit of conventional knowledge about this. Doctors warn that nothing's smart about smartphone addiction and labeled it a disorder. It's called IAD. It's actually now in the medical, they've now placed it in the medical texts now as a disorder. It's a mental disorder that needs to be. It's not only a mental, it's also being treated as a physical disorder. Internet addiction disorder, AID. Disorder to say the least, yeah. So we're not going to get too much involved in this. If anybody's interested, there is now, and this, this was compiled some years ago. And there's a Harvard School of Public Health, and it's talking about memory loss. It's talking about cognitive decline and Alzheimer's being, and dementia now. Every second person is getting dementia, right? We never heard of that before. By the way, interestingly, dementia, the loss of memory, the loss of cognizance. So it's a very famous saying of our ancestors that the person who reads the Quran, meaning he memorizes the Quran, reads it often, is engaged in the Quran, he'll never have this problem. And we've seen this. And people engaged in the Quran, they might be, everything else of their body is shut down. Qadi Fatih Muhammad, rahmatullahi, case in point, we have this Nurani Qaida, probably Jamal knows about that, in India, Pakistan, even here, everybody who reads Quran. So he was the one that promoted this anyway in Pakistan. I saw this fellow. He was blind. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't, even walk. But he would be reading Quran all the time. And his mind was sharp as a razor until the day he died. Right? So, being engaged in all of these activities, which is the opposite, all this stuff that the internet gets us involved, all this social networking, living in these fantasy worlds, which promotes jealousy and depression. And, it's supposed to be, a getaway and a feel good kind of an experience, but actually it brings on severe depression. It's also creating a lot of suicidal tendencies, particularly in our youth. Why can't I be like her, like him? And people really go into the syndrome of, a lack of self-worth and the fact that, thinking, not realizing that these people who painted this fantasy on their Facebook page, they're in more of depression and and anxiety than the people watching, they just put this thing on. Anyway, So all of these kind of problems, you know, lowering of mortality rates, families saying adults and children spending more time in front of a screen and smartphone than with each other. Do we need to highlight that, or is that seen everywhere? You know, just look at our own houses. You know, if we're in our own family settings, everybody's engaged. How much time do people spend on their gadgets as opposed to one another? Learning and teaching things, you know, learning lessons of life, etc. You know, teaching Quran and etiquettes of Islam, and even just good life lessons. No, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you know, I don't know what all, you know. So we really need to be conscious. So conclusion is virtual networking, increased use of digital tech displaces real world friendships. That is the dilemma. Our youth now, everybody now, but it's particularly the youth, and the younger they are, the more it is, they don't have real friends anymore. They're actually, they're fantasy friendships that they have. These are not real friendships. They don't give you what friendship and social interaction is supposed to give you. That's part of that's how we're wired. That's how we're engineered. We need that. When you don't have that, it has huge impacts all around the board. Time spent with one's spouses, you know, active attention to one's children. It's all getting, you know, compromised. So this displacement has real measurable biological and physiological negative effects. It's not just, you know, the medical establishment of the East identifies computer digital media overuse as the major health issue. 5 minutes. Okay. The medical establishment of the West identifies obesity as the major health issue. You know, see a picture of people in the 1950s, you don't see anybody obese. Do that. Go back and just see a picture of New York City, people walking around New York City in 1950. You don't find obese people. Now take a picture of the same street, 2022. You're going to see obesity, particularly in children. This is horrific. And so and all of these medical issues, they stem, or most of these chronic diseases stem from obesity. And where did the obesity come from? Sitting in front of these screens all day. Gaming, this, you know, this, what is that syndrome? Lack of attention, what do they call that? Attention, what is that? AD, yeah. AD, what is that? Attention deficit, yeah? Yeah, plus it's attention deficit and hyper, what is that? Hyper something. Yeah. So it has to do with, they don't have attention because they're hypertense. Why? Because and one of the major reasons for that is spending all this time on these screens, these video games and all of this stuff. They have no attention. They want 5 minutes attention, gone. So this is very critical stuff, right? So there's a lot of this stuff, and we could spend a lot of time, but these are the main takeaways: loneliness, depression, social disengagement, whereas actually the whole idea is to dispel all of these problems. People are looking, you know, to get to dispel their loneliness or depression, but actually it's creating more of that: loneliness, depression, social disengagement, worsening of mood. You know, you get all hyped up, you know, and then when you shut that down and you go into real life, the mood worsens, poor quality of life, diminished physical and psychological health. Even, now this was a study in 1998. That was, you know, in the stone age of the internet. Now you can imagine, you know, and now I recently was looking at the recent studies that it's just mind-boggling. So we have probably 2 minutes left. So now what do we do? What do we do? Do we just go with the flow, or do we take some interventions, you know? So this is also interesting. They've also studies have it's not just, you know, these psychological problems or social, you know, disengagement problems. Also, they found that actually genetically and physiologically we're having issues. Immune system compromised, tumors less likely to regress, suicide common among youth as is death of all causes. Genes altered, higher risk of cardiovascular disease, because of the fact that all of these things are engaging us, disengaging us with real life. You know, one of our sheikhs, he says, don't live canned life, live real life, live life. We don't want to live in a can. You know, everything else comes out of a can, out of a package. Our life is also being like that now. So we don't want to live like that. Live real life. Get out in nature, you know. Connect with your family, connect with people, have real get. Why do we have 5 times salat every day in the masjid? Juma every week. You know, I was mentioning in Juma, you know, you can't have a virtual Juma. Otherwise, you know, people say, well, let's have Juma from home. Let's have Eid from home. Let's have 5 times salat, you know, from home, virtual. No, it's impossible. Allah protect us. You know, somebody's got to come up with something like that. I'm afraid, you know. But no, it's not. No, we have to connect with one another regularly. That's part. It's ingrained in Islamic tradition, even in, you know, our daily activities. You see. So what do we need to do? We need to take, you know, control of the situation by the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's go right to, you know, Gene. This is okay. Let's just see this. Okay, this is an interesting concept. Can you read that? Infobesity. Infobesity. You all have heard of obesity, right? Being fat and being, you know, extra weight and extra fat as a result of inactivity. So infobesity, we're fat, full of information. Information technology. We have so much information. You cannot process so much information, by the way. You get just puffed up full of, and you can't digest it. Your mind needs to digest information just as your stomach needs to digest information. You know, just keep, you know, this input, non-stop input of info into our brains cannot handle that. And we get, just as we get indigestion in the stomach, we get indigestion of the mind, which also brings about, you know, its complications and impact on every aspect of our life. Therefore, when you're reading a book, you read a book, you think about it, you go over it, you highlight things, you know, think about it, reflect on it, then move on. You don't just, I finished this, I finished that. No. We need information, things that we're learning, we need to learn it. That's why a lesson in Islam is, first of all, we prep that lesson, we go over it and try and understand it, attend the lesson with full concentration, then go back home and go over it and revise it and memorize what we need to memorize. That's how we process information. This is how our ta'aleem, our education system in Islam was and still is, you know, where we hold on to this. Now, this is now the test that we all take. Signs of digital, are we digitally addicted? Me and you. Do you become anxious if you can't be on your digital devices? If you left your house and you left your phone and you get in the car and you're driving and you reach in your pocket, my phone, I left my phone at home. Does anybody get anxious about that?
I do.
You don't have to answer. Keep it. She's being honest. Everybody would probably say the same thing. Okay. Are you lying about your digital usage? How much time do you spend on internet? Oh, a few minutes every day. Are you lying about that if you ask? Have you experienced failed attempts to cut back? Probably all of us realize we're spending too much time, but do we find problems in holding it back, you know, curtailing the amount of usage? Are you spending more time in digital life than real life? And you know, the younger the people are, the more they are. You know, even on the beach, Jamal, we're sitting out doing dhikr. Everybody's got their phone out on the beach. Why do you go to the beach in the first place? You want to be there, the sun, the beach, the ocean. It's sick. But this is the reality. You know, so we're not even able to enjoy real nature. You know, this beauty of Allah's creation. We want to see this surreal world. You know. Okay, so the bottom line is, ask those who live with you; they'll tell you. Okay, so I think all of us are to some extent addicted. So what do? Okay, digital dieting. This is what we need to do. Just like we diet, you know, on So the doctor says you got this problem, you got that, but you got to cut out this. So we have to diet. So only use it for necessity. It's not a pastime, not an entertainment. Real entertainment. Islam also has entertainment. We get together, we do things, together, which is all halal activities. This is also good for us, and it's part of our life of worship, so that we can carry on the life of worship, with freshness and with vigor. So having entertainment, halal, good entertainment, collectively, real time, that's fine. Okay? Not digital stuff. Happiness is not anything digital. Just understand. Happiness in anything digital, there's no happiness in that. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Happiness is in remembering Allah in whatever form, not in anything else. Find happiness by cultivating relationship with Allah and association with others, His creation, Connect with real people, real time. Cultivate real character-based personality by real relationships and activities, not this phony fantasy character that we, develop, or people develop, on their Facebook pages and what have you. No, real character. Belief in Allah, love of Allah and His Rasul, love for humanity, a connection, with one another, having real character of honesty, integrity, etc., etc. We need to cultivate that, not all this other. And you're not going to cultivate that generally by being engaged in internet. Don't ruin your personality and health by virtual fantasy relationships. I think we all know what that's talking about. So we need an action plan. What's the action plan? So what we need to do is none of us are going to be able to live, probably, Some people actually do it, but it's very, very rare. I've met some people. But most of us are going to have to, here I have this laptop in front of me. We're connecting, through our various platforms. So we're all, probably going to have to use these digital things. And if we use them sensibly, if we use them, discerningly, we can actually get a lot of benefit. I mean, there is a lot of benefit that we can get from that. But there's huge amounts of detriment that we need to really be vigilant about. So we need to set the time that we use for these gadgets and for our interaction with the internet. We have certain times of the day. This is the time that we check our email. This is the time that we'll engage in whatever it is, and specify this is the type of engagement that we're going to be involved in, not anything else. And we would do well to have a buddy system. Have somebody that you can, come up with your strategy and then check one another. Okay, I'm only going to check my email like whatever, once or twice or whatever times during the day, or my business or whatever. And since much of our occupation is digitally connected, so earn your living and use these tools, for your livelihood, that's fine. But as we said earlier, we don't make it our lifestyle. It's not something we engage in just for fun or passing of the time. We have much better things to do. And of course, be vigilant what we see. And also, as we said, Satan, so when you tap into anything, especially when you're online and you're searching for something and all this stuff pops up. This is very dangerous, right? So you have to really be self-control, self-discipline, that you're looking for something, you don't get distracted by all these pops-ups and all these, seditions that are, coming in front of you every other moment, actually. So it's a challenge. And again, as we said earlier in the beginning, according to the difficulties and the challenge, the reward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us, So we need to actually, and we have some times where there's no phone. For example, the dinner table. At the dinner table, at the time of eating, we should be in certain times we have our family, time. Everybody phone away, off, on silent, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. No go times, no stuff, no digital, no phone, no nothing, right? And if we can, a day or two or three, no digital anything. Now they have clinics now, This addiction, this is very serious stuff. Now they have clinics where they take you up into the mountains where there's no signal, and they keep you there for 40 days, a whole chilla, that concept. Yeah, really. They do that now. 40 days, interestingly. They've come to this conclusion that 40 days, you really can, get off it, kick it. And they say in the first day or two, these people, they come there, the first day they can't even look at each other. They can't talk to one another. They're just really, but then after a day or two, they start looking at one another. They start talking with one another. They start actually, within a day or two, huge changes take place, So it's like any other addiction, you're going to have to kind of like cold turkey it, if you know the expression, a cutoff. So from time to time, we have internet free day or days or periods, and at least some times of the day when there is absolutely no digital stuff, and be vigilant. And ta'awunu al birri wa taqwa. If we can, as I said, if we have like a buddy system, we have somebody, we say an akh fillah or ukht fillah, our brother or sister, for the sake of Allah. And, these are things that we can do, okay, this is my plan. What's your plan? Okay, we can, check in every day or two or whatever. How are we doing on our plan? And, be kind to one another. Okay, everybody slips, we make errors. Okay, get up again, try again. Shaitan is going to be after us, nafs is going to be after us. We're going to slip again and again and again. Get up again and again, no problem. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. It's a huge issue, and the impact is severe. And billahi tawfiq. So, questions?
All right, Sheikh Hashim Ahmad, thank you so much. Great reminder, beautiful talk, and very relevant, of course, to our context today in 2022. So let's go ahead and open up for questions on the topic, or any general questions that anybody has. We have a question here, Sheikh, if you allow me, here online. Question is, how do we know when the good is not pure and not with light? How can we purify it? Know that we don't have any attachments that are more beloved to us than Allah and His messengers, peace be upon them.
Again?
How do we know when good is not pure and not with light? I think maybe the questioner is asking if they're doing something, how do they know if it's truly something good? Or
two things. Number one is we need to have knowledge, what is good and pure. So that's why seeking of knowledge is compulsory for every Muslim. It's not just a nice thing to do. We need to know not, particularly halal and haram. What is right, what is wrong, what is legal, what is illegal. We need to know that. Particularly what we are engaged in. We call this ilmul hal. The knowledge of the condition that I'm in. I must know that. So that's number one. Number two, your heart, as we mentioned earlier, your heart will tell you. We can feel when we're doing something right and when we're doing something generally. If our hearts have not been totally blackened, and hopefully as Muslims they haven't been. So, one is we're going to have to get knowledge, and if we don't have that knowledge, then we should be seeking it. And I said, and if we will get off of the internet, we can probably learn quite a lot. So let's make a plan. And by the way, how do we engage in good stuff, or disengage in the bad? Because the main thing is staying away from the wrong. That's the huge challenge. So our scholars tell us the only way you're going to really be effectively able to do that is you spend all your time in good things. Don't give, as they say, the empty mind is the devil's workshop. We have the same saying in Islam, that the devil, he gets at us when we're lax. We're off our guard. So we engage all the time in good stuff. So the answer to this is we need to learn what is right, what is wrong, halal, haram, and engage therein. And also, there's an interesting hadith, istafti qalbak wa in aftaka an-nas. Look at your heart, even if the people tell you. We got a lot of this these days. And again, the internet, you got all these sidewalk muftis, the guy they pull out their little English translation of whatever and start giving fatwas, and they got 1 million followers, and it's just nonsense, total blasphemy sometimes, And so that's another big problem of the internet is there is very good stuff there available, but we have to find out what is good, find out from the scholars, the bona fide scholars, what is good out there and what isn't. For every good program, Islamic program, there's 10,000 bogus ones. And if you get caught in that, it's really good. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, look at your heart, even if the people, even if the mufti gives you a fatwa, but your heart doesn't accept that. Of course, there should be a basis for that. But anyway, so your intrinsic nature of discerning right from wrong, generally, if your heart is not really, messed up, you can feel that this is something right, and you'll feel, would you like people to see you doing what you're doing? Somebody said, or would you feel kind of ashamed, of that kind of behavior or that action, if people saw you, that probably it's not right, and so we need knowledge, and at the same time our intrinsic balanced system that Allah gave us, it should indicate that to us, inshallah, if we pay attention. Yeah.
Jazakallah, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Beautiful topic and very informative. Thank you. I have a question. At the beginning of your talk, you said that we have, every human being has a shaitan and
an angel. Yeah.
And are those on top of the Raqib and Atid, which are writing?
Those are
deeds,
different.
Or those are different.
Those are different. In fact, we have more than that. I didn't want to get into that because it gets kind of complicated. We have, in fact, 8 angels who are surrounding us.
Really? Okay. Wow.
But they have different jobs. Every angels, they have different jobs. So one is the 2 angels that we have writing the good, writing the bad. And then we have this protecting angel. And against him, he's kind of like he against that personal shaitan. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, when he mentioned that, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, who was always that, faqih of the ummah, she was such a knowledgeable and always inquisitive. She said, Ya Rasulullah, so did you also have? He said, yes, I also have. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has helped me, and my shaitan has accepted Islam, and he doesn't tell me to do anything except good. So not everybody has that luxury, Yeah. Home ministry also. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, Sheikh, I just wanted to, if you can shed some light on, and you touched upon this. Of course, we live in a virtual world. We live in a digital world. Everything literally is revolving around access of online platforms or phones, etc. Right? I just got off a Zoom session with a brother, may Allah bless him, and the organization of the work they're doing in conveying the message of Islam. And if I'm not mistaken, hundreds of people with their organization a week are accepting Islam globally, hundreds.
Okay.
So of course, there's a lot of good in technology if we use it correctly, but then there's a lot of bad as well. Can you just maybe shed some more light on that? Because somebody might say, well, we live in a virtual world. What do we do?
Well, that's what I was saying. So it's going to be next to impossible to be totally disconnected from that. And as we mentioned also, for example, as a teacher, I used to have anywhere from 1 to maybe 100 students at a time. And now I might have thousands, online, So we don't deny that. Of course, having said that, being an online student, it cannot replace being in the company of Ustad, the teacher and student relationship that are physical. But it's the next best thing. It's better than nothing, and it has its impact. And yes, we have a lot of good stuff out there. However, again, I want to highlight there that we do have a lot of wonderful programs out there and wonderful opportunities that people didn't have. And you can be isolated anywhere on the earth, and still you can tap into the knowledge. And you don't have an excuse anymore that, well, I don't have anybody to ask. Well, if you have internet access, you can, which most people have anywhere in the world. However, having said that, again, I already mentioned that, but we'll mention again and highlight it. We need to verify. Don't just get on, get on to Shaykh Google and you should just Google everything, and no. So what we need to do is we need to contact verified, bona fide scholars. Who do we know is a bona fide scholar, by the way? A scholar who the scholars bona fide. Not the I say, he says. The ones that the majority, the vast body of scholarship recognize that this is a person who's an authority in this subject, whether it's tafsir or hadith or fiqh or whatever. You do the same thing in medicine. You do the same thing in legal, advice, whatever. So the same thing applies here. So we need to find out what who and what program is, credible, is authentic, and it's, the people involved and the subject matter involved is ratified by the scholars, and then by all means go for it,
And
but don't get sidetracked in the interim, because once you're on the net, even you're tapped into these good things, you're going to get bombarded for these pop-ups and this and that, everybody knows that. So you got to really be focused, and that's kind of the challenge, one of the challenges of that scenario.
And to Sheikh Hashim's point, that's why here at ISC for our outreach program every week, or our program revolves around our imams, our scholars, people that have authentic knowledge and are coming back and give. So I hope, me personally, I appreciate it so much when we have individuals like yourself, Sheikh Hashim, that come take time out of your schedules to help us out, and amongst everybody else who's helping us out as well. So excellent. We got a few more minutes. Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask on this digital virtual topic that we had today? Come on, I know you guys have questions. No questions? All right, Sheikh, you answered everything and you let us know, so I appreciate it. So I guess we'll call it a session there. Sheikh Hashim, as always, thank you so much, and may Allah bless you. We really appreciate your company here all the time. Hoping to catch you on the beach very soon as well for one of the events, and maybe we've been trying to plan it and do things like that outside of the mosque. So inshallah, God willing, we get. We put it on the group. It was on the group. Yeah. It's on the group chat. No, it's okay. It's okay. We got the post, and then we posted on the WhatsApp groups, inshallah. So for some reason, if you guys are on the groups, let me know. I can go ahead and add you over. It's a WhatsApp group we have for the brothers, and another one we have for the sisters, two separate ones, just so in real time we can update on announcements, class timings, reminders, and all that good stuff. Inshallah, God willing. So that's the first thing. So Sheikh Hashim, as always, thank you so much. Number two, I just want to again thank all the volunteers that help out. As you guys know, when we come to class, most, if not everything, is already ready, the tables, the food, all that good stuff. So just wanted to appreciate all the volunteers that are helping out as well. As you can see, we still have a lot of lunch here in the bags and drinks. Please, on your way out, if you want to grab a meal and take it for a late lunch, early dinner. As guilty as I feel right now, with talking about a healthy diet and so forth, this is our cheat day today. Sheikh Hashim, forgive us.
Well, I'm set for
That's
the
why I
day.
was like organic food, right, Sister Dina?
I've got dinner here. I've got coffee.
Yeah, and it's organic coffee.
Yeah, I mean,
from
wow,
Colombia.
subhanallah.
What do we say? The
Allah
mountains
bless
of.
you all.
I want to thank Guatemala, or maybe yeah.
From where?
Guatemala.
Guatemala.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, from
Mashallah.
Tiramia, actually. Yeah, you're right. I think so. And then. Okay, the actual one. Okay, so it is actually, you're pretty close. You're pretty close to where I was coming from. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, one of my things was I used to have a stamp collection. You don't even have those anymore. Nobody knows what that is, right?
No, yeah.
Does anybody know about stamps? Did anybody have a stamp collection? You do? They still have stamps out there? But what I remember, how I know Guatemala, when I hear Guatemala, they used to have the most beautiful stamps. No, really, they were masterpieces. I don't know why, but they were just some of these countries. And I remember Guatemala had this most beautiful stamps, and I had this in my stamp collection. I remember that. I was a little kid, So now I know that they have good organic coffee as well. So they have stamps and coffee.
Stamps and coffee.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
Great. They must have much more as well.
And then, so of course, just a reminder, so on your way out, if you guys want to grab some food, you're most welcome, and drinks there as well, inshallah. And then, of course, the recycling there as well. And we just want to recognize that we're blessed almost every week. We're having people join us, whether it's online or here in person. So I wanted to take this opportunity. I wanted to welcome Eric. I think this might be your first time, or it's our first time meeting you, Eric. So I just wanted to welcome you here to our class. And I think Anthony is kind enough to bring Eric, or they came together, if I'm not mistaken. No?
Yeah,
kind of. Anyways, welcome. You're always most welcome. So it's Eric's first time joining us. So welcome, my dear brother. And then, of course, Christopher here as well. So he's not new. He's been here a second time. So I want to welcome Christopher as well. But then we were very blessed. Literally before class started, we had someone that wanted to express and become a Muslim, express their Islam, meaning take their Shahada. And so right before class started, Chris, you just raise your hand for me. Chris, actually, after looking into Islam, he took his Shahada.
Wow. MashaAllah.
Welcome.
MashaAllah.
Now the initiation part comes in. It's where we jump you in and stuff. Just kidding, man. Just joking. Just joking. You'll get used to our corny jokes here. It's all good. It's all good. No worries. But Chris, yeah, he accepted Islam just here in the prayer hall. So I just wanted to welcome Chris to our growing family here at IIFC, and I think globally with so many people looking into Islam. And I can't stress enough. It's a blessing to accept Islam, but I think Shaykh Hashim will agree with me that the follow-up is so important now. The support system, the day-to-day operations, and everybody's agreeing here because that's where it comes in. So I just want to remind myself and everybody here, please make sure you stay connected to your mosque, to the services, to the programming. I'm sure every mosque is doing their best here at IFC. You guys are familiar with our weekly classes, our mentorship program, all the things that we have specifically for our new Muslim / revert segment of our community and our recommitted Muslim community as well. So please make sure to take advantage of that. So Chris, again, welcome. And you can tell because he has our IFC bags, right? You know that somebody accepted Islam when they have their bags. So welcome, my dear brother. And the brothers, please make sure to welcome our brother as well. And that will be our session for today. Inshallah, God willing, if everyone can help me out, we'll put the tables and chairs away. Yes, this week we do have to put them away. My apologies. I will put those away, and then we'll see everybody back on Friday with Coffee with the Shaykh. Please make sure to stay tuned on our socials and our website for different events that are going on throughout the weeks that are coming up, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Achha, Jamal, what about if, like on the Sunday mornings, if you bring that, your dawah table over there?